The political ramifications of this year's election are likely to have an impact on the country's economy. Well, many analysts are already predicting a volatile rand in the months to come. For more on this, I'm joined by Dawn Ridler, who is the founder of Kerenga Wealth Ecology. Good evening, Dawn. Thanks very much for your time. We always get this at the beginning of each year, this stargazing, as it were, to look at what the country and indeed the world's economic prospects are. First of all, for someone like you, when you sit and look at how things could unfold in the coming year, what do you look at, as a starting point? Well,
I think you need to understand that although we think we're a great country, when it comes to GDP, we're actually minuscule in terms of the world field, and it is America and China and these other countries that actually lead the way when it comes to our economy, and we follow suit. And yes, there will be local things that will change that and make us maybe better, sometimes worse, but that is what you need to just start with. And when you look at that and you say, right, what is happening overseas? And there's very little doubt that the global economy is cooling. There's been a full decade of growth in the bull markets in the States particularly, but also elsewhere in the West. And that seems to be coming to an end. It's certainly tapering off its end cycle. And this is being exacerbated by the China trade wars, for example. And so I think we are probably going to see a cooler global environment. Which gives us quite a bit of a headwind that we actually have to move against for a start. And then there's the local conditions that we need to take into consideration. Now, if you think that we have really just come out of a recession, a technical recession, and we all have high hopes, but we also didn't take full advantage over the last decade. For a number of reasons. Most of those, I think, are well known: corruption and bloating of the civil service and those kind of things. And it's money that's been frittered away, and it's going to be incredibly difficult for Pravin Gordhan, Cyril Ramaphosa, these kind of people to actually make an impact on that. It's very easy to add those things, but taking them away is almost impossible.
But then if the world economy is cooling, as you say, and even when things were better or could have been better, we never really, as a country, took advantage of what we had. We could have done a lot better, but the fact of the matter is we didn't. Does that mean we're going to be worse off then? Or are there a lot of ifs and buts?
I think there are ifs and buts, but at the end of the day, part of the problem we had over the last decade was the fact that commodity prices were low. They went through a really long period of being low, which hampered our ability to actually sort of keep up. I do think we're starting with a handicap, but it's going to be up to really the government to see what kind of fortitude have they got to actually make the economy better. And realistically, we're not going to see that happening before the elections, because those kind of decisions are going to be extremely unpopular. You're going to have to retrench people, you're going to have to downsize, all of those kind of things. It's going to result in labour unrest, and it's the last thing that the ruling party wants, is that kind of labour unrest coming into an election. So I think the first 6 months, if the global economy cools really rapidly, we're going to be in quite a bit of trouble.
So what are the options then for those who can do something about it? And I'm not referring here only to government. The private sector should also be taking a lead.
Oh, absolutely. And that's business confidence. And unfortunately, business confidence is still at an all-time low. And I don't know how you actually boost that without involving politics in it, because they're intricately linked.
But then business leaders are on record as having said they believe Cyril Ramaphosa is doing a good job. They made pledges during his investment summit that they're going to invest more in the economy. This on the back of organizations like COSATU having been saying year in and year out that there's a big investment strike by the private sector, but they were talking a completely different language when the president went on a charm offensive ahead of and during his investment summit. The same can be said of like foreign investors. When he went to Davos and elsewhere in the world, he was well received. Everyone said he was speaking the right language. So shouldn't we be expecting more then to come from them instead of talking again about confidence levels that are low?
I think you will see it, but it's a matter of when. You know, I think it's very easy to kick that can down the road and just sort of see what happens with the with the general elections, for example. You know, that's only 5 or 6 months away. It's not a long time to kick that can down the road. And then everybody can, if they like what the outcome, can then do all the investing. You know, I think they...
So you're saying that they are going to sit and wait?
I think so.
Why, though?
I think there's still uncertainties in the market, particularly when it comes to property rights. You know, we like to think that that's nothing, but, you know, it clearly is something. You know, also promises made, for example, on NHI and things like this, which are completely unaffordable for the government. I think there is a built-up need to make this investment and get the country going because it's in all of our interest to do so, right? But I still think that there is this concern that, you know, perhaps the EFF will come in as as the opposition, you know, and things like this, and they're much more obviously radical than the ruling party.
You mean, Dawn, that there's someone out there who believes that the EFF, which is a 10% of the vote, can suddenly leapfrog and have over 50% of the national vote?
No, I'm not saying that they become the ruling party. I'm saying that they could quite easily become the official opposition.
That hasn't meant a lot for the Democratic Alliance, for example. It is the official opposition,
yes, it is.
But they haven't really leveraged on that in ways that could actually make them effectively run, you know, the country be as big a force as they would want to be. Where they have scored major victories is when they have taken matters to court, but there again, it's been because of the failure to act on the part of the ruling party, which then gave them the edge. But with a great deal of help from the courts, of course, not to underestimate also the efforts of civil society. But it's been largely because of the ANC, the governing party's own goals. So even if you are the official opposition, it doesn't mean that an EFF, if they were to be the official opposition, would pose such a big threat.
You know, I think that's something that people probably said about Trump. You know, they laughed him off and this kind of... This populist movement that is happening right across the world, and the EFF is part of that populist movement. And there's also, and quite frankly, it's, you know, Trump is its major proponent of it, that it is quite acceptable to lie and lie and lie, and there's absolutely no consequences to it. Right? And I think that populist parties watch the success somebody like Trump has, who can lie straight-faced to everybody and have absolutely no intention of implementing these things purely to get into power.
I get that, but I still don't understand how potential investors would punish, let's say, the governing party on the basis of a rather unrealistic fear that they may have about what's happening within opposition ranks.
I think from an economic point of view, I mean, the elephant in the room is acquisition without compensation. And the EFF have joined with the governing party in order to get the majority, in order to change the constitution. And that is where the big difference between the DA and the EFF lies, is that the DA is out over here and the EFF is over here. And a lot of those unpopular policies, maybe from an investment perspective, are backed by the EFF. And so, the coalition between the ruling party and the EFF, despite the fact, that Julius says that he doesn't like the ANC very much. I mean, reality is what it is. That you get the coalition, you get those two actually forming the kind of majorities that they need to change the constitution. And, I think that would worry investors and offshore investors.
Quickly, we've run out of time. On a scale of 1 to 10, what are our prospects?
I would say probably about 4.
Let's hope it gets better than that.
I hope so.